All right, let's go pay Charles a visit again. Dave is the newest owner of one of their cleaning machines, right, Dave? You bought it yesterday. Almost all my friends have.
Very good.
What's up, Charles?
It doesn't work. Don't even think about it.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Yes, awesome.
Well, welcome to our 5th anniversary deal here.
Dave, you're supposed to say it like this. It'll never work.
Step right up, snake oil available. Come and get it by the gallon. Charles is selling it. If he's selling it, it has to be good.
You sound like Fremer many years ago until you convinced them.
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
Hi everybody. How can I help you?
All right. Tell me what you were telling me at the show the other night that we didn't at the pre-mixer. A lot of things going on that's different from Florida.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm happy to announce that after 7 years of applying for a patent, this Monday we got a patent for a process where records do have a release agent. Where I think in Florida I mentioned that Shure, I discovered a document for their V15 Mark III and Mark IV cartridges, where they saw on the Mark IV that we had residues coming on the needle, and they called it pressing oil, and then everyone forgot about it. So now, what we then discovered and it got approved is yes, there is a release agent. And then secondly, where we need to space records properly and use cavitation at 35 kilohertz, but with a 70 kilohertz resonance in order to even cavitation. So I'm just going to turn this down here. So here, if you take a look, I have a demonstrator, which I couldn't show until we got the patent.
Okay.
Where here I have a simulation of a 35 kilohertz ultrasonic, a 35 kilohertz ultrasonic with our assembly. And here you see these do-it-yourself assemblies that are sold by people that sell ultrasonics for jewelry and dental cleaning. And I have just a little bubbler underneath here from an aquarium. So the first premise is the patent is also the distances between records on a 35 kilohertz ultrasonic, where I want, if I'm anything less than this, such as these skewered systems, the bubbles rise and then they hit each side, so there's not an even distribution. So these ultrasonics that are skewered, even if they use the same frequency, cannot do anything with the record without harming it. And how do we test that? It's using a foil record. So here I have a foil record. It's record number 4. So this was actually put in an ultrasonic, not in my bubbler. And when you see that record in this position, you see very little dimpling. The test for ultrasonics since the 60s is, especially for aerospace where I work, you test the ultrasonic in the morning and you test the ultrasonic in the evening to make sure all the transducers are working. So here, this record that's called number 4, I have very little action. The dangerous part is with a 35 kilohertz ultrasonic, and although we use 35 kilohertz, we've injected a resonance in here, which I'll show you later. This was record number 1. Look through the light.
Oh, wow.
That is what happened in 30 seconds in a 35 kilohertz jewelry cleaner with these skewers.
Wow.
Okay? Now, this has been attracted to the foil. We know that. On a record, these systems don't work because the record has the same charge as water. But if someone sprayed our ionizing agent, which is the third part of the patent, I would have destroyed the record using a 35 kilohertz ultrasonic with all this cavitation that is not even. So the proof of the pudding is with record spacing and applying 70 kilohertz resonance, my bubbles are equal. So I'll show you the result. So here, 4 of these. You can't put more than 4 in the machine. Even cavitation from the edge of the record all the way to the dead wax or the dead wax area. Both sides.
Interesting.
So now, on the part of the patent is that if you don't charge the record, you do nothing. You can put soap in here, you can put any chemical in here. My system or anyone's system will not do anything except a very basic surface clean at least we'll do it evenly, that this system here won't be doing anything at all because the spacing is critical. So as you saw out in Florida and here 5 years ago, that we need to put something in the machine that has the right spacing. So here's that same cover. Now with our ultrasonic, the record goes in, it spins for 2 or 5 minutes, it's taken out, we put it onto the work area, we apply a spray that changes the charge of the record to be opposite to that of the water. So now we start to remove the films left from vacuum systems, ultrasonic systems, and as we go in and out of the machine, as the record turns, we lose that charge. We have 3 or 4, 5 or 2 minute cycles.
Okay.
And that's the proof of the pudding on how this actually works in real practice. So on a brand new record, we get 1.3 dB gain, guaranteed. And then on a record that you've already handled, a vintage unknown, 3 or 4 dB gain.
That's amazing. 3 or 4 dB.
3 or 4 dB gain.
That is crazy.
And courtesy of Jeff Rollins, he created for us a preamplifier that also has headphone output, but I'm using his level gauge here and with a formula to then measure before and after restoration.
And I know you've done a recording of that as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yep. And
I heard that recording, yeah.
Yeah, and here we've been doing this all day, so the timbre comes all the way up, and we now see the artist and the separation of the instruments versus seeing the speakers.
That's amazing.
So instead of just what I saw on your videos, let's talk about toe in, toe out, acoustic treatment of rooms and so on.
Right.
This is as important, and it will do the same thing. You will bring out the soundstage and the imagery. So in conclusion, we fought back in 78, on 17 with Mike, and here's the proof of the pudding that there is a release agent where I've removed 0.86 microns from a brand new record that I bought that had a pop here. And you can see the dust is gone. That was embedded at the factory. As records are 130 degrees or so when they fall out, any dust that lands on them gets embedded. So here, not only did we remove the dust, but you see where the timbre is. So here we've increased that 1.3 dB gain.
Interesting. Okay, so
So that's the deal. So we've had a lot of fun today. And
That's
yesterday, quite frankly speaking, we sold over 40 systems in the last 2 days.
Oh my God. Well, all my friends have them now. Let's talk about your cables, which I own, and you weren't able to showcase those in Florida.
Very good. Why don't we come over here? Well, here, this is something that's interesting. It looks like a Kimber cable, but it isn't. It's actually a 7-gauge cable that has 72 silver-tinned OFC strands per element in here. And the formula was actually developed by B.K. Butler of Denver. If you guys have tube pedal distortion pedals, everyone for 40 years have been using them with bands and whatever, with electric guitars. He developed a formula that gives me a crossover neutral affectation between inductance, capacitance, reactance, inductance, between the output of an amplifier to the crossover of the speaker. So I was able to manufacture this because I do Homeland Security cables for Border Patrol, 500,000 miles a year. So this was nothing to make 50,000 feet of this cable. Long story short is Terry London has adopted this as his reference cable in December of 2 years ago. And all of a sudden this hit like, wildfire. And recently Bob Levy from the LA, chairman of the LA Audio Society, basically said for the price of the sales tax he paid on his Curtis cable, this is the real deal.
Now, watch it. This price is pretty much...
Yeah, this is a 10-foot. It's $850. The sweet spot is 12-foot, and that's $890.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in taking advantage of anybody. I could have sold this ultrasonic restoration system for $1,000 more.
Yeah, like most others
I love
do.
music, and we want to restore the vinyls from our parents, our neighbors, grandparents. So it's maybe not a right business decision, But then again, you know, it is what it is.
And those cables, I mean, would go for a lot more. Like Kimber and others sell for a lot more.
Yeah. So this is basically a 7 gauge instead of, you know, an 8 gauge or a 10 gauge.
Yeah,
that
7
you
gauge
see.
is even bigger.
And there's a difference in here. It's also the type of material that we use for the dielectric.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I've had them for many years now, and never had an itch to change at all. But what about this cable here? You also have on the table.
Okay. Well, this is something that was. You know, I'm in the Homeland Security, and excuse the mess, it's been a great show. I had a project with Motorola where they build command posts, and they have audio connected to two-way radios. They have power, 12-volt DC from batteries and inverters and so on, or chargers, I should say. So I created a cable originally just to power the two-way radio, which is a 10-gauge, a silver tinned OFC 99% copper cable that had a drain or a shield wire on each side of the positive and negative speaker wires, which also ended up as speaker wires. We ended up bumping into people that at the THE show in California 2 years ago, were the guys that were putting in stereo systems in RVs and in cars had a problem, not only of power, but they also had the problem where bass and mid-ranges were going boom, boom, boom. So when you're driving down the street, you can hear the audio from a car next door very well. The definition is there because there's acoustic coupling. When you're in a car, it sounds like shit. So the guys started to use this not only for their power cable, they started to use this for their amplifiers. So at the end of the amplifier, we take these two shield wires, ground them to the amplifier, and let them hang on the other end. And guess what? We separate the bass and the mid-range. So
Naturally.
quite frankly speaking, this is the poor man's version of this.
Interesting. Or you could make a power cable or something from that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you could get a
And-
Furatech connector.
Well, as you see, I use the Furatech connectors, the kinches, the rhodium plated on all of our cables.
So maybe I should do that in a video. I should buy some of this and make a power cable out of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we use it for power to the unit. And again, the important part is when you're dealing even in a home environment, by having this grounded, I don't have anything inducted between the amplifier output and the crossover.
Okay.
So it's like a biaxial cable, but mono, if you want. It's a left channel and it's a right channel. So it's like a biamp that it isn't a biamp. So that and these have now become, we call it a high-res cable. And for someone that's doing especially 5-channel,
Yeah,
this
that's
goes in nicely in walls.
Right.
And if you use a test record, you know, from Radio Shack, or you use a test record from Shure, and you play that, go 1,000 hertz, 2,000, 4,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, 22,000, and then you do this with the same cable, we're exact. There's
Wow.
an exact output. Just make sure the levels are there, and then when this really comes into play is the separation of the bass, just like we had today, where someone brought in an amp. We did a little test. The trumpet was separated from the sax, and we saw the person for a change.
Interesting.
Yep.
And the price on this is very
Yeah,
economical.
it's $170 a roll, or $1.70 at any of our dealers for a foot. Here we're doing $1 a foot. And it compares with, a lot of these other cables that you're paying $8 a foot.
Cool.
Yeah.
What were you doing with aluminum?
Yes. So one of the big other things that we really covered today is something, again, where there's a lot of snake oil sold in this business. You can make this aluminum record yourself. So if you have an ultrasonic machine, you can find out whether it does use cavitation or it's a bubbler.
Okay.
And unfortunately, some machines that are used to be $10,000, now they're sold for $9,000 or $8,000. They drop down to $4,000. One of the German manufacturers says it's a cleaner. The US dealer says, or their rep says, it's an ultrasonic. Put this in the machine, no cavitation. It's not an ultrasonic.
Okay.
You open up the lid, you see bubbles moving around, and soap. It's a bubbler.
Bubbler is what you, yeah.
Exactly.
That's, I
Then we
didn't,
put this into a 120 kilohertz machine that just came out from Europe, Again, at one of my dealers, he says, I have one, it doesn't do anything. Why? It's not an ultrasonic, it's a bubbler. Then there's a new machine out of Korea being sold, latest and greatest, which is a copy of the two other machines. They spin the record, they blow air on it to dry it. Also not an ultrasonic, they just bubble as soap. And how do you know whether you have good cleaning, if you want to call it, or restoration? Your record, when you do a process, should come out dry, without air or vacuum.
Okay.
If you have water on it, your record has not been restored. The release agent is still there.
You have to go do it again.
Because and they don't do it because they can't. They don't have the cavitation. So unfortunately, just like JR, we're the two disruptive people in this business at Wally Tools and at Kirmuss that are looking at the end result is what you hear.
Sure.
So I can measure it. I can measure it like what I had to prove to Mike.
Yeah. You proved it with science, and then you prove it with recordings, and then somebody can prove it with their ears. Yeah. And that's why all my friends have bought it. And yeah. So great.
And again, it's not expensive. You don't have to spend $10,000 upgrade on a turntable.
Yeah.
Like I said, start with a Wally Tools or us, do us or a Wally Tools, and then use a level and check your turntable, especially in Colorado where we have expansive soils. That's why we've made these silly bubble pens, because my house moves weekly. So I do the X and the Y to make sure that my turntable's level. Some turntables do have the bubble, but my house moves. Every day I move. I can see my wash because we have expansive soil. And it depends whether we have rain or whether it's dry. So these are three elements that get you the best bang for the dollar. So in summary, for me, I do not buy new records.
That's right. I remember you saying that.
New pressings from Celine Dion, Lynn Stanley, Anne Bisson, Vincent Bélanger, the cellist, or some other artist that are new, that have been done with the cut, the die cut, analog all the way. I'd rather go and then buy used records, scratched or whatever, 25 cents on Mondays at Goodwill, half price off on Tuesday, and I restore those. And I have the original cardboard jacket, I have the original printed sleeve, and I have the original artist sitting with me at the house. So these new pressings also have about 1.3 dB attenuation because of the release agent. So in those Lynn Stanleys, Vincent Bélanger, they actually recommend our system for their records. Vincent will sign a restored record at a trade show in the UK or in the States after restored by Kirmuss.
Wow.
And so it's a lot of fun. And again, this is not a sales pitch. It's just I love music, and the music from our parents' collections, our grandparents' collections. Us growing up in the 70s, we did everything to our records. We stripped that out. And it's fun.
No, you can tell it's a passion with you, and definitely appreciate. We just need to get you to do interconnects next.
Yeah, I know. Well, if it's going to be an interconnect, it's going to be, again, a little different. Silver is the way to go. So if you're looking for interconnects between, especially a turntable out and the phono stage in, silver, do ask the manufacturer what anyone can ask me. What's the inductance, capacitance, resistance, inductance? I'm missing one. I'm tired. Not resonant. LC. Anyways.
LCR.
Ask them what the formula is, and then compare one cable to another.
Gotcha.
So that'll give you also an inkling of the efficiency. I have no knowledge though of the phono stage cable yet. If it comes, it comes. But that's what I would do.
Well, maybe we'll talk about doing a power cable with these. I think that would be a fun project for me to do, as a do-it-yourself. All right. Well, thank you, Charles. Appreciate it as always.
Absolutely.